Um, Thanks everyone for coming. I'm Robin Windsor, President and CEO of Cybera. For those of you who are not familiar with Cybera, and I suspect that's not very many of you, we are the provincial ORAN for Alberta. We operate the high-speed research and education networks, and we have a general mandate to spur and support innovation as an economic driver for this province through the use of cyber infrastructure. So today we're talking about a very key piece of infrastructure, one that seems to have bubbled under and now be on many people's radar, and that's an internet exchange here in Calgary. So before we get into all the interesting techie stuff, and you'll notice, by the way, that there is no projector, no screen, nobody has PowerPoint. If anybody does have PowerPoint, they're going to be disappointed because we have no way to show it, and that's intentional. What we're trying to do today is have a literal town hall meeting, and I couldn't be more delighted to actually have it right here at Calgary City Hall. The positioning of that is just perfect as we all get together to discuss something that's going to be vital to this part of Calgary and southern Alberta, the whole of the province. Couple logistics things for any of you who haven't spotted them. Washrooms are out here, turn right, and they're just by the stairs. They didn't actually tell me what to do in the event of an emergency, but I suspect that we all throw our hands in the air, run and yell, and that will probably work. Or we could actually sort of stay in a more calm fashion. Because this is an informal town hall meeting, I'm hoping to have lots of discussion. All of you who are here today are here presumably because you have opinions, something to say about the effect of an internet exchange in this part of the world. In Canada today, we really have one full-functioning internet exchange, and that's the Torix. There are a number of other small exchanges that are starting to be set up. We are looking here to try and set up a full-featured internet exchange with all of the facilities that we would expect to see from somewhere like Torix or Amsterdam. At least that's what we think should be happening. Now, Cybera has been doing a little bit of groundwork on this for some time. But this is not about Cybera. We are here to facilitate and find out what it is that all of us who are in this space have to say about it. So really very much looking for your opinions. There's a couple of things we're going to vote on this afternoon, and we're not going to get real formal about this. We're trying to find out what it is. Because you're all here, because you all have an opinion, everybody gets a vote, at least at first. If it looks like we got something that there's a fair bit of split on, then we're going to have to get a little more formal. At that point, we'll say, okay, this one's not as clear. And then maybe at that point, we'll ask people to vote like one per company and just try and get a better flavor of where we're going. But I expect that many of us are going to be in sync on what's happening. Because there's some folks joining us streaming over the web, and thank you to those of you who are joining us electronically, we're going to try and make sure that we remember, for your benefit, to speak into the microphone and not just yell up comments, which can be pretty interesting, and there's always a temptation to do it. We've got one more mic here, so if you do want to get up and say something, I would encourage you to do that. Come on up, grab the mic, speak, but please do use a mic if you possibly can, unless you're like really, really loud. My colleague from Compute Canada is not here today, but she's one of the people that I would know that wouldn't need a mic, but other than that, everybody else probably does. That was a small pick at Joel Kowalchuk, a good friend of ours, who unfortunately can't be here today. I'll just mention that Compute Canada is very supportive of what we're doing as well. Their interim executive director, CEO, can't remember Jill's title, was hoping to be here today, but other things have got her tied up. But Compute Canada is definitely part of this effort today. I'm also, in terms of starting out, I want to mention that this is not the very first meeting. It's the first general meeting that we've had bringing everybody together, and it's the first one that most of you will have heard of. We did, to make sure that we were at least roughly on the right track, have an initial planning committee meeting, and I would like to thank the folks from Blackbridge, from the City of Calgary, from Clearview, Envision, Platinum, RackForce, and the U of C, who all attended that meeting to say, okay, what are the main things, what are the elements that we need to discuss, what do we need to do? So with that out of the way, I'm going to kick this off by giving a quick picture of why I think an internet exchange makes a lot of sense. Having said that, I am not a particularly technical guy. I'm a physicist by training, and when I joined Cybera as CEO a couple of years ago, Jean-Francois, or JF, our technical directors, was delighted to see me reading up on books on BGP and routers and stuff. And I said, yeah, but understand this, JF. I want to understand that so that I know how to talk to you, but never let me touch a router. And he's been good to that, so our network has survived me coming on board. So why is an internet exchange important? We've got a number of folks lined up here, like the choir along the side here, who are going to tell you in more detail about why they see the internet exchange being an important thing. And one person I see that we're missing from the audience just now is Sylvie Laperriere from Google. She is coming. Good, thank you. She said she was coming, and I'm sure she will be here, and we'll hear from her as well when she gets here. So it's exciting to have lots and lots of folks here today who are going to bring their picture, their experience of what it is we're trying to build. There's a few things that we want to get coming away from this. We want to know at the end of the day, do we want to build an internet exchange? Ha! Speak of the devil. Thank you for joining us. And we have special seats up front for you. Sylvie from Google. Why do we want to build an internet exchange? Well, we all understand just how enormously important the communication infrastructure is. Cybera's International Strategic Advisory Committee, with people on there from things like San Diego Supercompute, from various Australian counterparts to Cybera, prestigious institutions across the world. Part of their key recommendations to Cybera last year was to help build the fabric of the infrastructure as well as doing individual projects. And this is very much about that fabric. We're finding that network-to-network interfaces are more and more important. JF's going to get up and talk about why that is in a moment or two and give his opinion. I will say, though, that from Cybera's point of view, we are a neutral organization. We're not an internet service provider. Sometimes people think we are, but we're not. We aggregate a lot of traffic from the universities, from K-12, from lots and lots of people in the public sector. Not so much within private, although we certainly work with people at the entrepreneurial startup stage with incubators like Innovate Calgary, Tech Edmonton, Tech Connect in Lethbridge. But from our point of view, this makes things more efficient, more effective. It will keep a lot of our traffic local. And I'm reminded of the old environmental slogan, think global, act local. This is a nice example of that. The example that's often cited is that if somebody in the room is getting their service from one internet service provider, a major like Shaw or Telus or whomever, and is talking to someone across the street from another, there's a good chance their traffic may be going through the States. And that's not helpful in a number of different ways that we're going to hear about today. Before I pass over to my more technical colleagues, and we've asked for all the folks here at the front to talk to us for about 5 to 7 minutes each. And none of them are using PowerPoint, so it should be fairly active. If you don't like what they're saying or you want to have them to join the discussion, just jump right in. Let's have a bit of a discussion here. I am reminded, however, that in 1858, the very first transatlantic cable was used by Queen Victoria to send a message to President Buchanan. And her message consisted of 98 words, and it took 16 hours to send, so the bandwidth wasn't very high. And people were so excited in New York that they had a mob rampage through the town with flaming torches talking about this new world, and they set fire to City Hall and burned it down. So I was particularly impressed that Charles was good enough to offer space at City Hall for this venture, and if anybody feels that excited, please calm yourself before leaving the room. With that, JF, do you want to talk to us for a couple of minutes and give us the picture of why you think an internet exchange is important?
Hello, right? I think well, thank you first for all coming here today. I think I'm basically pitching to a sold crowd. I think most of you understand the importance of having this. We look at other countries such as Brazil, and for the land size that they have over 30 internet exchange in Brazil. And in Canada, we still have only one. And as we try to enable the technology and the infrastructure in Canada, we really need to really set up the infrastructure so that we're ready. There's many reasons why we would want to have an internet and IXP in Calgary and more in Canada. It's not all about Calgary. The first one is cost. We will really get efficiencies by having the infrastructure all connect to a single point so that we can do settlement-free peering, and that's really the first goal of an IXP. The second goal that is also very important is to be really act as a catalyst for business. A lot of you have things to sell or things to buy, and the Internet Exchange should be a place where people can do commerce, and that will also be really good for the province and for Calgary. Another point that is really important is that if we're all what they call eyeballs, everybody is consuming videos such as Google and YouTube and things like that. We have to have a good mix of CDNs, ISPs, and also local business.
Yeah. I promised to jump on him when he threw in things like CDN and stuff, just in case somebody thinks that stands for Canadian. So you want to define your TLAs, my friend?
Yeah, I think ISP is pretty safe with the crowd here. CDN is Content Delivery Network, and it's really, there's usually two camps on the internet: the people who consume information and the people who have the information, and that would be Akamai, and we have Martin here from Akamai today. We have Sylvie from Google, where they really have a lot of information, and it's also in their best interest to bring it closer to the consumer. So it's sort of a triple play. It's good for them, it's good for the consumer, and that's really what the ISP have been trying to do lately, to bring the content of all the information as close as possible to their edge, so that it's a better user experience. And if we can do all that in a non-profit way with a Calgary Internet Exchange, everybody wins. And another thing I'd like to add is that in the States there's a lot of IXPs, but many are for profit. And I think if we don't move in Western Canada, it's only a question of time before another company moves in and decide to do a for-profit IXP. So it's probably better if we get our act together and actually build something that work for all of us together. And so, yeah, that's
So JF, you said a couple of things there, and I'm just going to ask you questions here because as the non-techie. You said this was going to be good for Calgary. What about the folks in Edmonton? Is it going to be any good for folks in Edmonton?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things we want to build is that it would be accessible through SuperNet, and we all know SuperNet reach everywhere in the province. So it's really not. It would happen to be in Calgary, but we could have planned to have an extension in Edmonton eventually. And if that takes too long, people can also use the SuperNet to connect directly in Calgary. So really, it's for the province. It's for Western Canada. And overall, it's for Canada as a whole, for sure.
So I'm hoping that you or one of your colleagues along here are going to tell us why it is that we want to do a not-for-profit neutral exchange rather than having some company come in and build it, because we're pretty pro-commerce in this province. What's the advantage of doing a not-for-profit? Why don't we just sit back and wait for somebody else to do it for us? Oh, okay. Well, Jeff's not going to take that one. All right. That wasn't actually what I expected him to do, but that's okay. I'm going to suggest that the advantage of having something that's really neutral is that this way we know that the exchange will stay fair and a level playing field for everyone going forward. If you start out with a commercial exchange, at some point that exchange may also branch out into service provision, and once those two things are mixed together, then you can't be sure that it's going to stay even and accessible to everyone. So we think that a neutral exchange is really important. It's part of what Cybera does. We're a very neutral organization. We try and be completely flat and fair to everyone, no partiality anywhere, and we think that's a key piece. Anybody else got some thoughts on that point just before we bring up the next speaker? Private versus not-for-profit? James. And James, if you're going to talk, you're going to have to come grab a mic. I know you're not shy.
You know, the level playing field part of it is certainly important, but it's ultimately for the benefit of realizing that the social and economic utility of the devices and the access networks that we've got at the edges of the network. Value creation at the edge of the network, that is where it happens now. And if you've got components of your infrastructure that connects people together that are blocking or hindering value creation at the edges of the network, that's an issue. So, yeah, not-for-profit makes sense, being able to stay neutral that way.
Terrific. Thanks, James. And just as folks come up to the mic, if we could, please just introduce yourself, say who you're with. That's James Van Leeuwen from Ventus, and a very tireless advocate for fiber connectivity in this province. So thanks, James. Okay, so I'm going to call up our first speaker, and I think, based on my list in front of me, that's going to be Sylvie from Google. We were prepared to adapt. We're trying to keep this pretty informal. You can have this mic, and I'll sit on that mic and heckle you. Let me give you a timer as well.
That's a good idea,
Okay.
because I can talk about exchanges for a very long time.
I think
Hi,
a lot of
everyone.
us can.
Thank you very much for having me. I was in the new building, so I was looking for this meeting. Thank you so much for having me. I have been a builder of the internet since 1994. So I really do, I have seen the evolution of the commercial internet and the burgeoning of internet exchanges. And the reason why internet exchanges happen is because there is a need. To have two people to connect, there has to be a need to connect, not a mandate to connect. And that's a very important distinction. A thriving internet exchange will be open. It will be open to everyone. It will be open to education, commercial providers, content providers, access providers, civil society, nonprofit organization. Anyone who has bits to exchange should be welcome to an internet exchange. So I am very much so a big proponent of member-led exchanges, because then the local community can make the best decision for their constituents. How do you build a successful internet exchange? Well, there's a few key factors. First off, you have to be in a location that is neutral. Everybody has to meet somewhere. It's a meeting place. So it has to be open and accessible. So the building that will be selected has to be open to everyone. Everyone should be able to come, lease some space, put their gear, and connect to the internet exchange. It also means that everyone should be able to come on the fiber of their choice. You can't have just one or two fiber providers. There has to be competition in how you will join the exchange. So to me, these are very important factors. And then it's the governance of the internet exchange. Internet exchanges that are led by members seem to be the most successful, because the members have a vested interest in the success of the internet exchange. If something displeases them, they'll let you know quite vocally and quite quickly. If they're happy, chances are you're not going to hear anything, but that's a good thing. So I think a community exchange that is well run, with elections every year to select who's on the board, who makes decision, who calls the annual general meeting, so that everybody has a voice, like one member, one voice, really truly benefits the community. We have seen too in communities where education participated, it was a beautiful ground to groom the next generation of networkers. You can get students from your colleges around, and they can come and work at the exchange. They can learn by doing, and that's also a wonderful experience. So why should you consider having an exchange? Well, first off, look, do you have a need? Is there a need to connect traffic in Calgary? Do people want their bits to be exchanged locally? Chances are yes. But you have to assess that, and let's all look at it. And then when that is established, then you will realize that your cost structure will go down, your latency will go down to access the services that you want, and then your users will be happier, because lower latency means happier users. And I think in the end, everybody wants quick access to the internet. So those would be the points that I would say are really important to think about. Of course, my company is supportive of internet exchanges. We've seen that everywhere where there's a community that drives the project, it's successful. And over commercial internet exchanges. When you have to go someplace and the cost structure is a bit pricey and you're not happy with it, or you have no voice, if you have an alternative that is a place where you can choose and you can make your voice heard, you will most likely, as someone who procures services, you will choose that place where you have the bigger control. So, do you have any questions? Or I'm right on time. I have 2 minutes.
I'll jump in with the first.
After, yeah.
I'll jump in with the first question. No, let's keep it informal. Let's talk about the Google Global Cache. Within the Cybera network at the moment, which connects all the universities, the colleges, and through the SuperNet out to a lot of the schools, we do have, and thank you for that, a Google Global Cache located at the U of C. But that doesn't actually provide a boost in performance as you stream YouTube videos and so on to folks within the other networks. What's the situation with caching in Calgary if we put the exchange together?
Well, we have two different ways of caching. So the caches that are deployed in Cybera belong to Cybera. So Cybera decides to whom it opens it up, and that's the model. When we deploy a cache in an internet exchange, then we will connect to the route server of the exchange and open up to everyone. Everyone who wants to establish a session with the cache will be able to. So it's a shared caching as opposed to a provider caching. It's still the same content that will be on it. It will be the most useful or the most viewed YouTube videos that will be cached as generated by the user request. So it's two different ways of implementing a cache, but it's still the same program.
Any other queries for? Come on, who could not want to query Google? We all do it every day.
I cannot answer all these questions.
Okay. Well, we're going to open the conversation up more afterwards once we hear from other speakers. So thank you for now, and don't think you're off the hook. We definitely are going to be asking you more questions. And the timer just started flashing red. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So next up, my list says that we're going to have Byron Holland from the Canadian Internet Registration Authority. Did I get the title right? I did. Yeah. Okay, terrific. And I'm going to reset the timer here for you. The bar has been set by Sylvia, who was exactly on time. And you, my friend, have 7 minutes.
I like that application.
There you go. It's darn handy. I personally can't speak without it.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rob.